Hey everyone, welcome back to the Beyond the Arc podcast. Today I'm here with Yash and Gavin. We got the whole group together. We're gonna do a little draft reactions. I know it's a couple days later than the draft, but you know we had to let the takes simmer a little bit. We'll see what everyone comes up with, but everyone came with their top three teams that had the best draft and top three that they think had the worst draft. So I love doing this with you guys. These are always so fun. So looking forward to it. But how are you guys doing though?
Doing great, looking forward to it. The lists are always interesting. You never know who's going to pick what or what ridiculous take I'm going to have that you guys are going to laugh at. So it's always a good time.
I feel like Gavin's the resident draft expert. So if anything, I feel like it's either me or Matt that's going to be wilding on this.
No, it's Gavin.
I was going to say, I always pull something out of the hat. So looking forward to it.
Yeah. All right, cool. Let's get started. All right, we can go with top three best drafts so far. We can go number one first. Gavin, you can start. Who is your number one?
All right, so my number one, personally, I would have to go with the New York Knicks. I think the Knicks had a really good draft. They made a few moves at the end, or just kind of moving things around with the Mikal Bridges trade, so then they didn't need as many players this year. They had 25 and 26 going into the night, and then they ended up flipping 26. Don't actually remember off the top of my head. Oh, they flipped it to the Wizards. But they ended up with Hakom Diadet at 25 from Ulm, from Germany. Tyler Kolek at 34 from Marquette, and Kevin McCullough at 56 from Kansas. And then they also had another, but I think he's going to end up being a stash. I was kind of looking into him. I was like, I don't know if we need to mention it. But I'm more basing it off the top three guys. Just overall, I was higher on Diadet. Is 6'9" forward from Germany. Playing pro ball. Showed a lot of toolsy ability. Just a good long-term guy. I think, you can't have enough athletic wings. I'll run that saying into the ground. And then I think Kolek was a really good pickup as well. Just as a backup guard, having another facilitator on that team, someone who can get the offense going that's not named Jalen Brunson. We were talking about that a little bit offline, just having a guy that's a facilitator and can kind of get other guys involved without taking too many shots. And at 34, that's huge value for Kolek, who was one of the best playmakers in college basketball last year. And then Kevin McCullough is good, utility guys. So I thought overall they had a pretty strong draft. I don't know if any of you guys had them in the top three there.
Did you have them, Yash?
I didn't have them top three, no, personally.
Good start. It's all right.
I just don't think those are high enough upside plays for me to be like, oh wow, yeah, that was a top three draft. I don't think it was bad by any means. I mean, Hakom Diadet, I haven't watched a ton of him, but it doesn't feel like he's that ready right now to come in and play. He's also on the older. He's already 21. So we're calling him 21 old because we're all 21 here. We're not really old, but little bit on the older side. Obviously has really great tools, but then his production at that level too wasn't great. So it's this guy's not really. He's definitely a project player, and I don't know. What do you think the upside with him is? I don't know.
He's also 18. I don't know. You're tweaking. He's 2005 born. It's all right though. It's okay. I didn't want to call you out like that, but that is part of because he was playing pro ball at 18. So he's an upside swing. I don't know. I was higher on him.
I'm looking at someone's NBA draft guide right now, and they have the age wrong.
Oh,
the age is wrong on that. That's my fault. That's not me.
No, it's all right. That was part of it, but I was higher on him. I had him top 20 on my big board. I was watching him as he had a lot of on ball ability, but then he was also he was used as a cutter a lot just because he wasn't the main guy on this team naturally, a professional German team. So I don't know. I just think what you were saying, it wasn't an eye popping draft, but I think they addressed everything post Mikal Bridges trade. It was okay, where's that other creation going to come from? If it's not Jalen Brunson, I think Tyler Kolek can actually play that role year one. I actually think he will get significant playoff minutes like in the first year just because of his ability to run a second unit and be able to like they tried it with Miles McBride. He's not a real point guard. Put Tyler Kolek next to him and those kind of guys, and I think he actually gets the offense moving. Kevin McCullough's 23, definitely on the older end of the spectrum for college players. And I actually don't know if he's 23. He's around there, but he's highly productive at the college level, utility guy, plays off ball, improving shooter. Like that's the perfect thing you need if the Knicks decidedly said they're going all in. You trade 5 first-round picks. So the next things you do, you get guys that are going to be able to contribute right away. Maybe not day to day, but the other 2 guys definitely, I think, are contributors year one.
Yeah, I thought the Knicks were one of the winners, and you made a good case for it. Kolek, especially, that pick excites me. I just thought they were bigger winners than that. I do agree though they did come out good in the draft.
Yeah, that was your number one.
It's good value.
Yeah, that was my thing. That was my thing.
They addressed perfectly what they needed in this draft to go and be competitive this year. I think that can constitute a number one.
I just don't think any of those guys are needle movers though for this franchise. Like they draft Tyler Kolek or they draft, I don't know, like AJ Mitchell. I don't know. I don't really think that is moving the needle much, but well, here we go. That's why we do these lists.
I love being a contrarian, so I'm not worried.
That's right. Stand on it.
All right, Yash, go for it. Who's your number one?
Yeah, my number one. Speaking of AJ Mitchell, the team that drafted him. My number one is OKC. Yeah. So basically, just to summarize their draft, they picked Nikola Topic with their lottery pick, and then the aforementioned AJ Mitchell, 38, and then earlier late first rounder they got Dylan Jones out of Weber State. For me, it was just AJ Mitchell. I feel like he can be a day one contributor for them, similar to Tyler Kolek. And I actually think that AJ Mitchell does help OKC, even though they were the number one seed. I think that his ability to handle and organize things, I feel like he is, and also play off the ball, play off of their creators. I feel like he is someone that can slide into the rotation and help him out. And I do like his long-term outlook as well. He comes in like atypical guard. He reminds me a lot of Jalen Brunson, where he plays at his own pace, guy that looks to create his own shot, play in the mid-range. But with a developmental program like OKC, where he's being drafted in, I feel like the outlook for him to develop on those traits, eventually reach his ceiling, I feel like the outlook for that is better than in some other franchises. And so I do like that pick as someone that can help now and also potentially long-term. Speaking of long-term, Nikola Topic was someone that has, in my opinion, one of the higher upsides in this draft, just someone that's really good at getting into the paint, really bursty guy. And so like when he slid down due to a variety of factors, OKC capitalized on that. And again, they have the luxury of being able to stash him, allow him to rehab, and then down the line start to play him and work him into things slowly. And so as an upside pick down the line, I like that as well. And from what I hear, Dylan Jones is also wing that can pass. I feel like he also slides into some things that they like. So I thought that was just a good draft for them.
Yeah. Okay, let me ask you this. We're
0 for 2 with Matt. He's looking at us after these picks. He's like, what are you guys doing?
I don't see either in my top 3. But once again, like I just don't think any of those guys are like high enough upside to warrant like a top 3 draft. Because for me, like the way you nail a draft is by either getting insane value in my mind in the later portion of the draft, or you like really hit on a high end, like a high end pick, like a top 5 pick, like you just home run out of the park, like you got it. That's kind of my criteria for it. And just
right.
like, I knew you guys are both going to probably have OKC. I thought about it, like they're definitely in consideration. I don't think they had a bad draft by any means. Once again, it's just the scale of it. I like Dylan Jones a lot. I think out of all those guys, I think Dylan Jones might actually have the best career. Nikola Topic, I'm interested to see how that kind of works out, because to me he feels like a guy that really needs the ball in his hands to be successful. Because I mean that's just what he is. He's a point guard, but the Thunder already have that in spades already. So it's kind of interesting the route I think the Thunder are going with some of these selections. It's like these guys are all, point guard, main lead guard type initiators, and now they're being scaled down into this role with the Thunder. So it's like, how are those skills going to translate to this smaller, more concentrated role in offense? To me, Dylan Jones on off, I like his offense, just like how physical he is as a driver, and he can pass that at a reasonable level, and I think he's going to be able to defend. Whereas Topic and AJ Mitchell too, like I'm not entirely sure how they are going to be defensively, and if they're not your like number one, even number two offensive player on the floor, it's like, why are they going to be on the floor? I don't know. It's just kind of my thing. I don't think it's a bad draft, but like I just don't think like it completely warrants a top three spot.
Fair enough.
Yeah, OKC was going to be my honorable mention. I couldn't throw them in my top three, but I was going to honorable mention them. I was lower on Topic going in this draft, and it's actually kind of fitting that OKC selected him because I think Presti saw a little bit of Josh Giddey in Nikola Topic, if we're going to be honest. Nikola Topic definitely a way more prolific shooter and off the bounce game. I don't think that can be mistaken. But when I watched him, I wasn't like, this guy is going to be blowing by NBA defenders, kind of like he was in Serbia when he was playing. It wasn't like he's crafty with his finishing. He uses his body well, but his first step is really nothing to write home about. And I'm not sure how that's going to translate. He reads the game really well, but again, it was very similar to Giddey, where it's like playing out of transition, hitting the big hit ahead. Like I don't know how sustainable that's going to be in a half court playoff kind of setting, which is presumably where OKC is foreseeing him playing. Now he'll get a red shirt year because he partially tore his ACL, so he's probably off the docket for the majority of this year as well. I'm really excited about Dylan Jones as well. 6'5" with 6'10" wingspan. He's a quintessential Thunder kind of role guy to plug and play. And he had a really great quote on Twitter today. He was like, I learned how to be a supporting guy from being the guy. Or it was something along those lines, like, I know how to support the number one guy because I was that guy at Weber State. So I know what it takes to be a guy that supports that type of player. And that was just that's exactly what you want to hear as a GM and a guy pick back end of the first round. Like that was exactly what you were looking for in this pick, and he knows his role. So he's looking to contribute early on.
Yash, any rebuttals?
No, fair enough. I think I'm just high on the guys that got, or AJ Mitchell is high on. Topic, I think I'm a little higher on, and so I agree. Like with some of this, is just like how you gauge some of these guys relative to others. I was just personally higher on them, but you guys make good cases.
They have just a logjam of just these type of players, just like initiator types that are going to end up being scaled down. Like Ousmane Dieng, they still have on their team. Kaysen Wallace, they still have. They just have so many guys. Well, they just got rid of Josh Giddey. That was another one of those type of guys. But even if maybe just one of those guys really pops, I think that's a kind of a win for OKC. But at the same time,
and even if they don't, like you trade them, like the Giddey. Even if they don't pop, like you trade them and you get assets.
Well, what value are they going to have if they don't pop? At least Giddey, he started. They smartly kept starting him and didn't just bench him, because if they benched him, his value would be a lot lower. But they just kind of let him keep playing, even though it was pretty clear to everyone like he probably shouldn't be playing anymore, especially like come playoff time. But that's a different point. All right, we can move on to my number one. I had the Utah Jazz with Isaiah Collier, Kyle Filipowski, and Cody Williams. I just thought that's kind of my whole late round get a lot of value sort of criteria, like that they fit in there really well. Because I had Isaiah Collier like top on my board. I think I had him top 7 on my board. I just think him and Ron Holland were the two best like drivers getting downhill in this draft. And I also just don't think that. I think that USC year, that was just, that team structure was just awful. They had no structure or flow in offense. Like, it just felt like Andy Enfield was just kind of rolling the ball out, letting Collier and Boogie Ellis like go to work. It was literally like watching a pickup game sometimes. It was just so disorganized, and Collier still find a way to, he still got downhill, was able to create for his teammates. Not the most efficient, but that's, a first year in college trying to create at a super high level from a standstill. And I think he was able to do that. Like the flashes you saw, I really bought into it. Really physical, just, big body. It's going to be hard to stay in front of him. Of course, there's stuff he needs to work on, but I just think that raw ability to get to the basket is there. Kyle Filipowski, I like his skill set at the 5, space the floor, able to play out of DHO, make reads, attack a closeout. I don't think he's terrible in switches either. Like I think he can kind of hold his own. Of course, there's concerns. Can he actually do the big man stuff well? But I think the other skills that he brings, if he's able to be good enough at the rebounding and rim protection, things like that, that's a home run pick. And then Cody Williams, I think, is a really great high upside swing. I really like his in-between game, his pace, his touch. I think those are all, really great things. Has great measurables as well. So, and also I think the Jazz need a wing like that too. They need someone to kind of fill in that wing spot. So I thought these were all really great picks for the spots they were selected at. So that's why I have them number 1.
I can't argue with that.
Yeah, I wanted. Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
Let's go.
No, I was gonna say the same thing. No, you're good. Like I wanted to be mad at this. I really did, the way you were upset at ours, but I can't because personally they were my number 2. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
I wasn't mad. I'm not mad at yours. They're good. Like, at least you didn't pick one. Like, okay, that was my worst draft list. You had them in my top. That could have been bad. That would have been pretty funny, actually. I kind of wanted to see that happen. They're on my list, but on the other one.
That's usually what you leave me to, but I also had him number 2. I like Cody Williams a lot. I was lower on Collier, lower on Filipowski overall. I just don't know. Again, Danny Ainge masterclass. Like, those are guys. Like, Collier was number 1 in his class. Filipowski was consensus first round. They start falling. You just pick them up. You figure out the fit later. I don't know. It'll be interesting to just see how those pieces fit together. And Filipowski's just like, I think that kind of player prototype or archetype is like just not very playable in like a playoff setting down the line, like in big volume minutes. I think you're going to see. I was not as high on his defense, but I don't know. I really like Cody Williams. I don't mind it. And again, I'm not going to deny the talent. Those are 2 guys I was lower on, and I don't see how they necessarily elevate that team right now or how that's going to pan out. But there's definitely potential for that.
But you had them at number 2, though.
I had them at number 2. Yeah.
Okay. I guess with that we can transition to number 2. You guys both had the Utah Jazz at number 2.
Yeah.
That's who I had at number 2.
Minnesota. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
It's getting so predictable.
Oh, man, you guys maybe you're making me be self-conscious and want to reorder it now.
No. I actually don't mind that. I don't mind that at all.
I thought they had a good draft, and I think it was a really shrewd move to pick up Dillingham, and that kind of fits a need for them. They got him on a I thought the value in which they got him was like really good. It was just a future unprotected first, but I think it's like top 1 protected, which is still pretty solid. Like, you pick him up for a cheap deal. Like, you're trying to win now. This is what you're trying to do. So, and I think Dillingham really fits a need. He's going to learn under Mike Conley. Of course, the one concern I have that in my head is, like, you want this to be a really great defensive team. Dillingham is not a good defender right now. So is he going to, kind of hurt that identity? But for now, I think it'll be okay because he's probably not going to be playing a ton in like crunch time anyways. Like, that's still going to be Mike Conley unless Mike Conley just falls off a cliff in terms of his play. Even then, I don't know if you still want Rob Dillingham starting. But anyhow, and I think Terrence Shannon too, could come in, I think, a lot better than Wendell Moore. We watched Wendell Moore last year in Summer League, and that was an experience.
It was not an enlightening experience at that. So,
yeah, Wendell Moore pick and roll reps. That was really interesting to watch. Let's put it like that. I just remember there was one. He just took a pull-up 3 off like a pick and roll and just hit the backboard. I was like, oh shoot.
He was. That's what's so funny about Summer League. It's just like you see guys just like trying to they're just trying to get that film out there that they can hit that type of shot. Like, there's no sort of preparation for. well, I don't want to disrespect that much. Then that there's no preparation, but it's just like if they can hit that one shot and like something to add to the highlight reel to the resume, but it's like it just really doesn't pan out. Anyway, sorry, little interlude there. But
Did you guys have
yeah.
Minnesota anywhere?
I did not. I didn't have them in the top three or an honorable mention. I did like it. It is a matter of it's great value. 2031 down the line. It's weird that the Spurs would give that up, kind of because they're rebuilding stage. Like just take a swing on someone and put them in the G League or whatever and put them in the development. But I guess they figured they have too many projects like that already. Dillingham, I think will be. I think his role, if you can imagine, like if you would imagine, it, is like you said, he's not contributing in any sense defensively at this point, and definitely won't be in the first year. But like if he can maintain that same sort of intensity and dynamic like play on offense when Ant's not on the floor, like so, there's not a drop off in the stylistic play of the Timberwolves because he can he can collapse the defense, he can get to his spot in the mid range. Like he plays with the same sort of energy and like not know how, but same sort of play style as Ant. So I think that's like it's a good fit stylistically for sure. And then Terrence Shannon is very similar to Wendell Moore, except now he's coming in on a fresh rookie deal, save you a little bit of money. Wendell Moore wasn't panning out. I think those are just smart front office moves from a team that's pretty strictly or pretty restricted in terms of the moves that they can make at this point.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm kind of regretting it now. I think I mixed up like having a top 3 draft, like in terms of prospect versus like winners of the draft. Because I think the Wolves are winners, but I don't think they're draft wise. Like,
honestly, I think it's a good pick because especially in this draft where the upside talents aren't that crazy, I feel like that's why I feel like I aligned with teams like OKC and I was going to mention this before, but Minnesota was my third team.
Let's go.
So I feel like, I appreciate you taking the flack for the Minnesota homerism. I'm gonna just slide by here and just subtly drop that I also had in here. But basically, that's why I felt like since this isn't a crazy upside draft, teams that were able to take advantage of winning teams that were still able to collect talent. That's why I felt like I aligned to them more. So I don't think you're wrong in the wrong here with having him here, where you did.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Josh. I appreciate that. That means a lot.
I got you.
A lot. What about you, Gavin? What are you doing at number 3?
Stop laughing, bro. Like, let me live. Number three. Yeah. Who did I have? Oh, Washington. Washington, number 3. I think that's a very safe pick. I mean, they had the number 2 pick in the draft. They picked Sarr, who just as a prototype, as an archetype of a player, like you're excited about him, even if there were questions and it's far from a guarantee, but you can get excited about Sarr, especially if you're the Washington Wizards of all people, with Rashawn Holmes and Marvin Bagley staring you in the face of being potential starting centers on an NBA team.
Wait, now they just got Jonas Valanciunas, actually.
Did they really?
Oh, yeah. Okay. They got Jonas Valanciunas.
Well, thank goodness that changes my whole perspective on this draft class. I mean, thanks for the input, but no, it doesn't matter. We'll just start Alex Sarr.
He's just start at the 4.
Can you wait to see Jordan Poole and Jonas Valanciunas pick and rolls? Because it's going to be diabolical. Anyway,
that's my favorite player, man. You gotta watch yourself.
Oh my God, that is gonna feed families or starve families, whatever. Anyway, Alex Sarr too, good upside swing, can be something potential. Really like Bub Carrington at 14. He kind of got a little.
You're a Bub Carrington guy.
Big Bub Carrington. I had someone tell me this. If you like Bub Carrington or if you like Rob Dillingham, you should also really like Bub Carrington. And Bub Carrington and Rob Dillingham was it's very similar. It's similar. They kind of
I feel like
diet, but like similar kind of play.
Dillingham is just way more shifty to me. Like he's just shifty. That's his nickname, right? There's something with
Rob with the shifts. Rob with the
shifts.
Yeah.
Isn't that his Instagram or something? Yeah.
Yeah, but Bub has more physical tools at this point. Really long arms, good finisher. He's not a good finisher at the rim. I was about to say that. I think he will be once he kind of bulks up and learns how to use his body more at the rim. But he actually almost never got to the rim, which was a concern. Gets to a spot in the mid range. You kind of get scared. You're like, is this guy just Johnny Davis 2.0? I think I'm seeing past that.
Ooh.
I think there's a
Wait,
development arc where he can be good. Then again, he
wait,
ended up
and you
washed.
had them number 3, and you
I had
think he
him.
might be Johnny Davis?
No, I didn't say. I said you're worried that he might be because he
Oh,
has
okay,
such a
okay.
heavy mid-range shot diet. But I'm saying I think you see past that because he has way more physical tools, and once he plays with a little bit more NBA spacing, that was the other thing. Pitt had almost no spacing that whole year. I'm excited about Bub Carrington. I think that was a good pick at 14, and Kaishawn George at 26. Didn't watch a lot of him, but athletic, young, like 3-and-D wing from Miami. It's always a good swing, and people were higher on him. I don't know. Again, I don't know what he does in year one, but it's a good project. So I think all in all, that's a strong draft from Washington.
Yeah, I mean, to me, you have Sar. I had Sar number 1 on my board, and you get him at number 2. I think that's a good win for you. Anything to
Fair
add
enough. Yeah.
on the Wizards, Yash? I didn't have them in my list. I had definitely is my fourth though. They were number 4.
They're my fourth, fifth honorable mention. I did like their draft, as you guys
Yeah.
said.
So we know is just I have to go now for number 3.
Yeah,
Josh,
just
you
you.
had Minnesota, right?
Yeah. I had Minnesota 3.
Okay. I had the Houston Rockets. They had one selection. It was Reed Shepherd, but I think Reed Shepherd really fits the 2 paths for them moving forward. So, number 1 right now, I think he's a great fit with this current group, just in terms of his shooting, because they need shooting, man. They need shooting so bad. That team, just another connector, high feel piece, keep the ball moving. Good. I think Reed Shepherd's also a good team defender. He fits that area for them, but also I think there's a little bit of upside with Reed Shepherd in terms of his pull-up shooting off pick and roll, him being able to create off that. I think over time he's going to become a more nuanced pick and roll player, especially since he has this number 3 tag. He's going to get the reps, I think. Well, to be fair, Houston does have a lot of guys already, but he's going to be learning from guys like Fred VanVleet, which I think is that's going to be a good way for him to learn how to get a shot off better. Really hunt those threes kind of like Fred VanVleet does. So I think there's also a lot of upside there where he can maybe even take that number 1 point guard spot from Fred VanVleet when it's time for them to move on from him. So that's why I had Houston number 3. The only pick they made, but I like it a lot.
Well, I had them as an honorable mention as well, kind of for the same reason as Minnesota. Because as you said, like those guys can contribute right now. Speaking of Reed and Rob Dillingham, more so Reed Shepherd, but they can also slide in potentially and replace the aging point guards that they have respectively at the position. So I like that pickup.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that, and I agree. I think it aligns nicely with the Rockets' kind of timeline. Fred VanVleet has a team option after this coming season. So if Reed Shepherd kind of is going in the trajectory that they want, maybe they clear their books and kind of give them some flexibility going into potential window where they want to be competitive. So I think it kind of aligns nicely, and I'm high on Reed Shepherd. I think he gives them a little more half court stability as well. In addition to Fred VanVleet, and not as much like relying on transition like guys like Jalen Green, Amen Thompson, Cam Whitmore have kind of been thriving off of lately, which is again successful in the regular season, but kind of gets negated a little bit as we get into the playoffs. So I don't mind it. And they were able to pick up AJ Griffin with the trade for the 44th pick. So again, we were talking about this before. I don't know if you want to count that in their draft class, but AJ Griffin was a lottery pick, no, first round pick at least, top 20 pick just 2 years ago. So there's interesting upside there. Although I went and watched his film after seeing that deal, and I was far from impressed. He's really not progressed at all. So, but just interesting to keep an eye on.
He was dealing with an injury though last year, right? To be fair.
I don't remember, but he definitely let's hope he was, because that's the only explanation for what he was doing. I mean, there were threes that didn't even hit the rim, like on multiple occasions. And again, don't want to disrespect, but I mean, he was coming in as a guy who was 44% from 3 at Duke, and then he's not even hitting the rim. So But hopefully that's a good upside swing. You get a guy that was top 20 and you trade him for a future second on a modest contract. Can't complain with that.
Yeah, fair enough.
All right, we can move to this. This should be fun. The worst drafts. Yeah, Yash, you want to go first for this one?
Oh man. Okay. This might be a consensus.
Wait, should we do number 1 first, or number 2 first, or number 3?
I think do number one.
Sorry, number 1, or like, do you want to go 3, or do you want to start with 1? Sorry, I don't know why I said number 2. That's dumb.
We'll start with. Do you want to switch it up from how we did the winners?
Let's start with 4, Matt.
Shut up, bro. Let's do number 3 first. Let's do number 3. Let's build.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Okay. I had a whole intro set up for my number 1, but it's all good.
But
Okay, this might be the most controversial pick of the draft. I had Detroit as my third worst. Yeah, it's so okay. Let me explain myself, and you guys can feel free to chime in. But I know they drafted Ron Holland, and he is incredible upside, as Matt touched on. Just ability to get to the paint, and I fully agree with that. I do align with where people think of what people think of Ron Holland. I think he's talented, but I just feel like in Detroit they have so many mouths to feed, and more like I think for them in particular, like a lot of their talent are like high lottery picks from the past. It's I feel like it's just hard for him to get the opportunity that he may need to develop, just with that core, and the fit at least early on it's not super seamless. People have talked about this. Like no one in there aren't many players in that core that are good shooters that can really play off of each other all that well. And you're adding another player in Ron Holland who's still a developing shooter. I feel like it's going to be hard for him to contribute out the gate, and long term, it just might be tough for him to get the opportunity he needs. That's just what I felt.
I have no arguments with that. I think that was kind of a consensus pick, or not a consensus, but a widespread concern throughout the draft community when that selection went through. I think people were higher on Ron Holland, but not necessarily to Detroit, where you mentioned there's the spacing issues and just early onset. Like where does he get the time to develop? And it's a weird conundrum, because it's like I've come around to the idea that you do best player available, especially when you're in the position of Detroit and how the last few seasons went. You can't. I think it's fair to say that you can look at Ron Hall and be like, this is not a guy we can potentially pass up on just because the fit is weird right now. Then again, if things don't progress how they're supposed to, then you look at this pick and you're like, this made no sense whatsoever. Everyone's very high on Fred Vinson, who's the assistant coach coming in, who is the shot doctor by all accounts. So they're hoping that he can get Asar Thompson and Ron Holland in line with some 3-point catch and shoot camp. And if that is the case, then this team does become quite intriguing in terms of like having a lot of rangy wings. They just got Quentin Grimes. Bobby Clintman is another big wing. That was their second round pick. They got Wendell Moore. You guys correct me if I'm wrong, but
yeah,
I think Wendell Moore ended up in Detroit. So you got a bunch
he might get waived, dude.
You think he's that bad?
He might get, this is the roster crunch. Like he just might get waived at some point.
They have enough money. Anyway. They can throw a little mid round or second.
Yeah, but you might want to
qualifying offer.
Else.
Whatever they do. There's enough rangy wings, and if they can get some of those development projects along that help with the spacing around Cade, it's intriguing. But on the surface, I have no major complaints. It is an interesting fit and could be problematic.
They better have the rebounders ready in Detroit at practice.
That's crazy.
I have to say real quick, I have no. This isn't slight against Bobby Clintman. I'm not super familiar with this game, so it wasn't taking into account.
No, fair.
But it was mostly just that. Yeah, what do you have to say, Matt? Lay on.
The rebounders, dude, in Detroit. Make sure you bring in a lot of them to that gym at practice.
He's gonna have the gun going for like 8 straight hours. Don't leave until it hits.
Oh my god. Okay, that's messed up. Yeah, I mean, I've heard that too about Fred Vincent's gonna help fix people's shots, which I think he will. And I don't think Ron Holland's jumper is like It looked pretty bad in terms of like how he was missing, and apparently too, like I've heard this on podcasts and reading about it, like apparently in his pre-draft workout he was like airballing shots to the point where it's like, okay, you just stop shooting now,
Oh shoot.
which is not a great sign.
Tough
But he
day.
had like decent rhythm on his shot. Like I thought it was fine, but if it gets to the point where his jump shot's just like so broken, it's broken. That's just gonna, and that becomes like what he's known for. Like this pick might end up flopping. But I really like Ron Holland's game. Like he gets to the basket really well, but there is major potential here, especially with the logjam Detroit has, and there might be some sort of like, I don't know, push from ownership to like, let's win more games than we did last year, please. He might get lost in the shuffle a bit, which I hope is not the case, because I'm really high in his game. But yeah, a lot of non-shooters on that team right now. So, but at the same time, though, you don't, as Detroit, you don't make a selection based on like, if you think that's the best player available, you take him. You don't take into consideration you have like Jaden Ivey and Asar Thompson. I mean, maybe a little bit, but if you think he's the best player around, like you're going to take him. You're not going to take him because I have Ivy and Thompson. I could see it. I didn't have them on my list, to be honest, but that's just because I'm high on Ron Holland, so that might make me biased.
Fair enough.
All right, I'll go next. So I had the Atlanta Hawks here. Yeah, and the main thing is with Ricochet. Like I just don't think he was the number one overall player in this class. I think he might be a good NBA player. That's a very, it's a possibility. Just I wasn't super high on his defense. I thought he was all right, not great. His shot could use a little work still. I don't think he's like a knockdown shooter. And then also just like off the bounce, like I didn't entirely see like, okay, wow, this guy's gonna be a legitimate shot creator. So I think you pick the number, what I had him like probably 5 or 6 somewhere around there, and you take him number 1. Although that's not like that big of a gap in terms of numbers, like the margin at that space, if you mess up, like you have the number 1 pick, you messed up, like that's not great. So I would, weigh a little bit more heavily messing up at a higher draft pick than messing up at like 30 or whatever, or like even like 20 or 25. So that's why I had Atlanta at number 3 on my worst draft. So that's just because I think Ricochet still could be a good player, but I don't entirely see him as a number 1 overall player in this class.
That's fair. Yeah, I can't argue that. I think I was higher on research. I don't remember where he ended up for me. I think he was like 4 or 5. It was just an interesting kind of predicament at the top there because like they hadn't worked out Sar. They didn't want to take Klingon because they invested in Kongwu. They have Capella.
That's true.
So it was kind of a weird like situation where they had to like just fit around. I mean, again, like you want to take best player available if they really thought Klingon or Sar was that good. Sure, they would have gone for it, but it was just a weird like where they've already invested resources. I like research say again. He's not Wemby or Paulo or Cade like previous number 1 picks have been kind of franchise altering or generational. But we knew that going in, and they just you gotta take what you can get. They had the number 1 pick. They got to take a guy that wouldn't be a number 1 pick in previous years. That's why I probably left them off of my worst drafts. I think they did the best with the situation they were given. But agreed. I don't know if he's going to be like a superstar. But I am intrigued to see kind of him next to Jalen Johnson if they can be kind of 1A, 1B, and like the 2 wings, because that's kind of the new team building meta is just put 2 athletic, rangy wings, wide skill set next to each other, and then kind of fit pieces around that. Plus Trae Young, I'm intrigued, but I don't mind that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I had spoiler alert. I had Atlanta number 1, unfortunately.
No, I ruined it. I'm sorry, yeah. I ruined your monologue or whatever intro you had and going into it. Just give your spiel and then go for it.
Yeah, let's hear it.
It's all good. Yeah. Okay, so basically, like for me, I agree with you guys in that Ricochet, he's not the highest upside, but for me, like I also question what he does or the level of the skills he brings right now to be an effective contributor, like right now as well. Like he's known as a shooting, or he's known for his catch and shoot ability, and he shot pretty well at in France where he played. But I feel like he doesn't come in as like a Reed Shepherd level shooter either. Like there's still question marks with his shooting. He was majority a corner shooter in France. He didn't, and he shot poorly on above the big threes. Didn't have like excellent touch necessarily around the basket either. So I feel like there's still question marks with what he brings right now as well. So like in a lot of ways, like I think I was just a little confused in what direction they were going with the pick. So I personally I feel like I was just a little lower than you guys are on this pick.
Well, I'm curious. Wait, I'm curious.
Yeah.
Both of you guys were just like, I don't know where they were going. Like, who would you have taken at number one? If you had that, you could have picked anyone. You're number one. Who would you guys have taken? Out of curiosity.
I would have picked Sar, but obviously it's a lot harder when his representation won't talk to me and I can't get him in for a workout like that. Yeah, that would be kind of a concern to me. But at the same time, like I do think he was probably the best player to take at number one in my opinion. So it's tough. Maybe you look to trade down.
That's what I was gonna say because I think I mean, again, this is just my thought. I feel like all signs kind of point towards them building around Trey right now, which, regardless of what you think, that's just the kind of direction I feel like they're going. And so, in that case, it might have made sense for them to trade down, get assets with the number one for the number one pick, along with a lower pick, to where you can then pick a player that you feel would complement Trey right now. That's if that was a route where like you guys like Sar weren't available, I feel like that's the route I would have taken.
That's fair, but I would counter that as just to give some credit to the Hawks is you have this draft where I don't think anyone was dying to go to the top of the draft and get Alex Sar. So you have whether this number one pick is worth like comparatively to other years, what is it worth? No one was dying to go up like, oh, we need to jump this team to get Alex Sar. Alex Sar only worked out for like 3 teams. People thought Klingon was going to fall. He did end up falling. Steph Castle was like, there wasn't any, like, I would give the Hawks some credit and see, like, look, they just happened to end up with a number one pick in a year that it's not as strong. You took a guy that has upside swing, 6'10" wing who can shoot it, and you go from there. But I think they just got kind of put in an unfortunate situation of having the number one pick in a year where there wasn't a number one pick-esque upside swing available.
First world problems.
Well,
we got the number one pick this year. Dang it.
Out of all years to get the number one pick, like,
I agree with that. Last year. That's why I also felt like, that's why it makes sense maybe for them to trade down because of that. Maybe take advantage of just the number one label and try to get assets for it.
Yeah.
True.
I mean,
I'm saying mentally it might have been a weird like kind of not conflict of interest. That's the wrong way. Like they had the number one pick and it just as you hear it as a standalone value, the number one pick is so valuable. But this year they couldn't get the sort of return that would normally justify a number one pick, so they didn't want to give it up, knowing that it is still the number one pick, and they didn't feel. I'm sure they got some offers, they fielded some offers, but it wasn't to the standard of what a number one pick usually garners. I think that would be what I'm trying to say with it.
Yeah. Well, maybe if the Wizards were like super set on Alex Sar, they could have put out the smoke screen. Oh my God, we love Alex Sar. I don't care that he's not coming in for a workout. We're still going to take him.
True.
Washington give us 2 picks to move up to number one. But I don't know. That's a little bit of a game of chicken. But maybe they did try that and it didn't work. I don't know. But maybe, leak to Shams or Woj. Hey, we might take Alex Sar actually number one here. So teams below us on Alex Sar, hit us up. Could have done something like that, but yeah, that's true. I like that point though, Gavin. It's just like they probably did look to trade. I would bet they explored that option, just as part of their due diligence, and they just I guess didn't really like that route. All right, we can move to number 2. Wait, did everyone give number 3 yet?
I didn't give my number 3. This might be
dude.
again. You're just dying to hear that. Number 3, I had the Chicago Bulls. This is more a Montas Buzelis agenda that I just like. No, I'll say
no. The hometown kid goes to the hometown.
No, wait. Actually, that's not fair to Montas Buzelis. That's
Gavin hates feel good stories. Yeah.
Headline: Gavin hates feel good stories.
Gavin doesn't like when people are happy. No. No, I listen. That was a wrong way to start this. I'm lower on Matas Buzelis than the consensus. Think he was
Dude,
a
he was
little
drafted like
overhyped.
11.
No, it's like, what do you mean? That's higher than I would have taken him. I had him like 20 in my big board or
Oh
something.
my gosh.
I just didn't like. Listen, here's my spiel. Although it's funny,
Let's hear.
my player comp initially was Denny Avdia. Although now, if you're looking at how Denny Avdia played this past season, that'd be a pretty solid outcome. But initially, anyway, not a huge Montes Bucelos fan, and my pick, or in terms of the Bulls having the worst draft, it's justified by the fact that they just brought in Josh Giddey, and I feel like there's a lot of overlap in terms of skill set here. You both have like kind of jumbo creators, not super athletic, don't get to the rim very well, not going to create out of a pick and roll, like not bursty, athletic, jump off the page kind of guys. And it's very redundant to have those in a team, in a Bulls team that had a few other and I like identifiable needs. Like, I mean, they did just give Patrick Williams the extension, but there were plenty of other good shooting wings that you can use to like space the floor. If you believe in Cody White and Dasumu as your backcourt, then you go and get kind of another wing who's just like a connector type. And maybe they think Buzelis is that. I'm just saying for a lottery pick, it's redundant to go get a guy that I think is very much consistent with what you just traded for as well, and that I was not as high on Buzelis. So that's kind of my justification there.
But Ricochet won't work out against them.
That was so ridiculous. I mean, hey, props to Buzelis' PR team, who was like, yeah, just call out random draft picks and be like, yo, this guy is ducking smoke.
I don't.
So stupid. Like,
How about it just been? I think he's going off script.
literally,
I think he genuinely doesn't really mess with him.
You don't mess with him, man.
who does Ricochet does it?
No, Matas doesn't really mess with Ricochet. He had a whole interview with Shams.
Probably
That
'cause
was
he's
like the
a lot
clip
racer
they took out. That
Yeah.
was the clip they pulled. Just he won't go against me.
It's like,
That was pretty good. That was good. That was good stuff right there.
I
But
mean,
I don't know. I think Matas is like fine there. If anything, actually, you know who I think a good comp for him is? Patrick Williams.
no. I
Yeah.
disagree. Is like night and day watching Patrick Williams and Matas Buzelis at the same stage of their career. Watch Patrick Williams at Florida State and tell me if that looks anything like Matas Buzelis on G League Ignite. It's not even close.
I think like they're pretty much like kind of similar players. Like they're not, like you said, they're not super bursty. Like, you know, they love getting to their mid range. Can handle the ball decently for their size.
Patrick Williams is way more like toolsy and rangy. Like, I think Buzelis.
Buzelis has some crazy,
He-
crazy what's it called, measurables.
Yeah, he does. I don't. I didn't. It didn't see that. Like, I didn't see as much of that on
Bro,
tape
what?
or like being. I don't know. I'm just not. I'm not as high on him. I think we've seen this prototype or this player archetype come through the league before, and it hasn't panned out. I mean, even Denny Avdia, like I was saying, who had a good year last year. This guy was a top 10 pick, and Buzelis ends up being a lottery pick. It's kind of a disparity. But like, if you look back on him, you're like, was Denny Avdia a top 10 pick? No, he hasn't really panned out that way.
I just like don't know who else they would have taken. I'm like, oh my god, you know, they really missed out on that guy. So your argument is basically Modest was just like should be so much lower in this draft.
I'm not.
That's
No,
just-
that was the other thing. There were other guys behind him. I like Dalton Connect, who ended up falling to 17. I liked Jared McCain. I liked Devin Carter. I liked even you could have gone Darren Holmes there. I think that would have been bad either. Like, I think there were just better fit guys like that would have come in like behind there that would have been more pertinent to, or even Topic was one pick later. Like, Bulls, where are you going this year? Like, get a guy like Topic and maybe he plays a little better alongside Kobe White. I don't know.
Tobic would have been interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's like. Well, that's just based on your board where like you had him a lot lower. So
True.
with that I understand. Yash, did you give your number 2 yet? Or no? So that was your number 3.
That was my three.
That's right. Oh my god, we're already at 50 minutes. Okay, let's go to number 2. I had the Milwaukee Bucks here. just
That was my.
like AJ Johnson, like he might, I think he, could be a good player at some point, but the Bucks just keep picking up these young guys that are just not close to helping them now and are years away from developing. And they have Giannis and Damian Lillard right now, and Chris Middleton, who's kind of aging out a little bit. Brooke Lopez as well. It's just like they need to bring in a guy that's gonna, help them now. Or even just move off the pick and like just pick up someone that's some rotation player that's just gonna help them. Like their player development track's already not strong. Doc Rivers doesn't have a great track record with player development as well. I don't really see the vision with this pick with AJ Johnson in the first round too. It wasn't even like a late round flyer. This was like the 23rd overall pick when you have guys like Terrence Shannon or
Dylan Jones.
Dylan Jones, Ryan Dunn, Baylor Shireman, guys that would come in and they bring some sort of skill set now that, oh wow, this could help us. Whereas a guy who like barely could get on the floor for an MBL team and like average like 3 points per game or whatever. I think he has potential. Like I think he does. Like he has some great wiggle off the bounce, and he's athletic. He's pretty tall, pretty skinny right now, but he can bulk up. But just like this doesn't help the Bucks now, unless they like believe, oh my God, this AJ Johnson, like this is our guy. Like he should have went top 10. He was top 10 on our board. He fell all the way down to 23. We got to get him. But I disagree with that analysis, like fundamentally.
Yeah, I align with that. I think the reasoning for the pick is because Milwaukee felt that he was an upside guy that they really had to get,
Yeah.
because it's tough because I don't see him getting runtime right now, and and they already have like young players that they've kind of drafted to play, like Marjan Beauchamp last year. That
He's
didn't
not bad.
necessarily. Yeah, right, but I don't think that really worked out for them on either side. Like he wasn't able to play late in the season or in big games. Either way, yeah, I just again, it feels like he's going to be stuck where he can't really get the developmental reps that he needs, and even if they need to call on him, I don't know if he can provide what they need either. So I had them. I also had the number two, the Bucks.
I had him number one. I think they were just definitively the worst. I know I'm not high on AJ Johnson. Like you hit on all the points. Doesn't fit the timeline. The guys after him: Dylan Jones, Shannon, Ryan Dunn, Shireman, Collier. Like so many guys that you could just see playing a role for the Bucks this year, and they decided to kind of throw that out the window for this guy who is definitively like at least 2 years away from playing. I think that's pretty safe to say. Like playing meaningful minutes, and this is a competitive team and they want to win now, and so it doesn't make a lot of sense. I do like Tyler Smith, the second rounder from G League Ignite. He'll learn a lot from Bobby Portis. That's a perfect mentor mentee kind of setup there.
But
But
the
again,
thing is, like, he's also not close to being
no, he's
ready to
not.
play
Yeah,
yet.
that's what I was. Yeah, he's a project, but yeah, I don't see him, especially while they still have Bobby Portis. It's just again redundant, overlapping skill sets, which is not what you want to see with an early round second or early second round pick. So yeah, I had him number one. I don't think it was. I don't know if I saw misuse of value and assets other than the Bucks. So.
Yeah, that's fair. All right. Yash, who was your number two? Oh no, your Bucks are your number two. What was your number two, Gavin?
Number two, I had the Pelicans. I had who had Misi at 21 and Antonio
Yeah.
Reeves at 47. Again, maybe a little personal board agenda was lower on Misi. Just I don't know how that fit works with Zion. I think that's kind of a weird. We kind of saw that experiment. Like he definitely offers more athleticism than Valanciunas did. A little more vertical spacing for sure. Zion can kind of hit ahead, like play some lob pick and roll game there. But I don't know. There was just like Misi was a lot more like you're betting on a lot of things panning out that you didn't see at Baylor in this first year. And again, you look at guys. I mean, Dyron Holmes, one pick after him, like that seems like a pretty, in my eyes, a pretty blatant miss in terms of maybe he offers a little more floor spacing. And so I don't know. Just combine the fit and where I was to the player relative to the consensus didn't make a lot of sense to me. Don't know a lot about Antonio Reeves, admittedly, but wasn't a huge fan of what they did with their first round pick with Misi.
We'll say
He's a shooter.
What?
No, and I was gonna say we'll say the center room for the Pelicans really just opened up because they got rid of their two guys getting like, the starting big Valanciunas and Larry Nance. Do you think Messi is someone that can play a role in any kind of way for them in year one, or is he more of a developmental guy?
I don't know. I would be shocked if he was playing like meaningful minutes in like crunch time. I just think he's not a super. I didn't watch a whole lot of him. I was looking into him. I was reading about him. It's like it's a prototype. Like he's got a lot of upside, got a lot of length, very toolsy. Like has decent instincts at this age. Like for like shot blocking defensively. I just again with the fit and like where that type of center, that type of player has a role in today's NBA. I just thought it was a weird asset allocation situation. Like I didn't really see the value with it, especially given the players that were selected after him.
Yeah, I just don't understand taking a center who like he can't even really even do dribble handoff or be like a playmaking hub.
Right.
Like he can't even do that, and you have Zion Williamson. He averaged zero point 0.4 assists a game, right? And you have Zion Williamson on your team. You're trying to win now. Obviously, they're going to bring centers ahead of him. That's just going to happen. There's no way this guy's probably going to be playing. I mean, even he might. I don't even know if he's going to be the backup big. To be honest, like 19-year-old center who doesn't really provide much else besides rim protecting, rebounding, which are valuable things. Like we all know. But yeah, that's one I probably should have at least considered a little more heavy. I might have just like skipped out of it on my mind. But yeah, I very much can see that. You have Pelicans anywhere, Josh?
I don't think I considered him. That's what happened.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So that was your number two.
That was my number two. Yeah.
All right, we'll go to number one. I'll go first. This one's a little bit of a curveball because this team actually didn't make a draft selection. The Brooklyn Nets. They didn't have a draft pick in this draft, and if you're going to be going down this rebuilding route, I mean, I feel like you kind of need to make a selection at least somewhat. I mean, they have guys I think that are valuable pieces. I mean, DFS, Cam Johnson, even Cam Thomas. Like, if you could get into like a high lottery pick with some sort of combination of that, like get some money off someone's books with like using that Ben Simmons salary. Like just move into that high first round range and maybe take a guy that you want, but maybe the argument they make, oh, there isn't really anyone that we would like think that warrants it. So maybe I've just like
That's what I was gonna say.
talked myself out of the number one selection, but yeah,
That's what I was gonna say. That was a perfect segue into my point. I think especially given that next year's class is at least the way it's made out to be. It's a loaded draft class. You want to be as quote unquote bad as you can. I do get why they wouldn't go for something. Although you may say like, yeah, you can get surrounding talent. Like maybe you don't get your number one guy in this draft, but maybe you can get someone that can be your number two or number three. In either case, maybe I guess maybe they tried looking into guys in the top 10. Maybe it just didn't pan out for them. That's what I'm thinking. But because of
oh, sorry.
yeah, no, I mean I was gonna say anything. I was just gonna say like, given that next year's class is as loaded as it is, it makes sense why they wanted to be as bad as possible.
Imagine you're a scout for the Brooklyn Nets working on the draft the whole year. They just don't take anyone.
It's a tough go. Well,
Yeah,
Although,
no.
yeah. No, I said although like scouts, scouting reports, like it's like a data point. So like down the line, if they want to pick someone up in free agency, they look back to the scouting reports. It's not completely useless and vain, but yeah.
Yeah. My main issue is that goes against the Cam Thomas 30 shots a game agenda that I am looking forward to being passed this year. Gonna be doing triple platinum numbers on NBA Twitter. Just Cam Thomas yakking up these mid-range triple team fadeaway. It's gonna be a sight to see. But in all seriousness, I actually don't mind. I don't mind that kind of introspective pick there because you're right. You want to. Especially in the second round where literally every pick was traded. Like, clearly people were giving up picks just for a bag of chips. Like, the Blazers traded one of their their second rounder. I don't know how it ended up with a weird like to Golden State to OKC, whatever. They gave out some cash considerations. Like they just like threw it away for whatever $300,000, which is like always tells you that an NBA team just didn't want to take on another player. So you're right. If the Nets, again, a team that is going to be throwing in the towel before the first game is even played, you should probably just go in and get a guy that you really like and he could be this and like see how it works, because there's no rules this season. So I actually don't mind that. I think that makes sense the way you said it.
It just feels like a lost year, right? Because they don't have anyone in the. I mean, Cam Thomas is like the one young guy. Then like, okay, this guy could be some. Claxton's kind of he's going to get moved though at some point in the next year or two.
Yeah,
Why? Not an extension.
I just don't think he really fits this timeline for this team right now.
I agree.
And I think he probably has better value getting moved now than waiting out this $24 million contract that goes out to 2027, 2028. Like he's definitely not going to be on the Nets by the end of this deal.
This is just kind of a quick interlude, but people were saying that's a very movable contract. I mean, Claxton,
yeah, it is.
$25 million a year.
That's not for what the
Really, that's for
salary
him.
cap.
I feel like just for his value, that's already
Yeah.
a bargain. So that's
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's movable.
Actually, I don't
like,
bargain.
you're going to take, if you're a contender and you presumably have a lot, like you're probably up against like the second apron, you're going to take Nick Claxton, who is, I really value his defense. And I think he's developing as like a DHO hub kind of create like in that sort of like he's trending in that direction. But like you can't just casually throw 25 annually on your books. Like I wouldn't say that's
well. If you're up against the second apron, you're not really getting anyone.
Well, no, but like that's what a lot of guys. That's why that's why the Knicks are kind of like they're like now they're getting Mikal. They're gonna have to extend him next year. Like there's not a lot of flexibility. That was a random example, but I'm just saying like you say it's a movable contract. Like you would flip him to a team that's contending for picks. But a team that's contending is presumably going to have a lot of money tied up in their best players that are already making them kind of in contention. I don't know. I just thought it was like, I wouldn't say it's movable by any. That was the word that was being thrown around. I don't think it's like movable.
I think with how the salary cap's going, it's relatively movable. Of course, if it's a contender that already is pretty strapped for money, then probably not. But I don't think that's where he would have went to anyways. I think
Fair.
He'd more be OKC would be a really great fit with Claxton.
That would be disgusting. They're already looking at Hardenstein though, but that would be a weird. I don't know. And they're going to be once they start re-signing Jalen Williams, Chet, they're going to be up against it as well. But and we could.
Although Hardenstein's a little bit better of a rebounder, I think because the OKC just kind of needs that. Claxton is like a good rebounder, but not like excellent.
Right.
He's a little bit on the skinny side, but yeah. So that's who I had number one. I don't know. I feel like if the fact that they didn't get any young players this year with any sort of upside, like, is just kind of a wasted year in terms of development. And I feel like they had, some guys they can move, but obviously not making a trade or a move is better than making a bad move. So I don't know what was out there for them, obviously. This is just from like my perspective. I think they should have looked to pick up at least, some young guy that they can look to develop.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they could have traded for or traded down to a late first and gone like Isaiah Collier. Maybe that's something they could have done.
Isaiah Collier, Cam Thomas backcourt.
Oh Lord,
it's on me.
I liked what you said. I liked what you said too, Yash. That Cam Thomas stan. I don't mind it. I don't mind it at all. He's a pure hooper at heart. He's got it tattooed over his chest. Pure hooper. He gets buckets.
No, I'm excited for him. Like, this is a make or break year for him, and excited to see what he does out of.
A guy that can score the rock like that, he's got a role in the NBA somewhere. Maybe not the Nets, but somewhere.
Yeah. Does anyone else need to give their number? Do you guys both need to give your number? Well, Yash.
I had the Bucks. Atlanta. You had Brooklyn. Who did Yash have?
ATL.
Oh, so we already went over it a little bit.
I sorry I ruined your monologue. You had the monologue all set up, and then I
was cooking, man.
Do you want to give it now?
Yeah, come on.
It would. I'd just be wasting everybody's time.
No. I'll clip it, and then we'll post it.
And actually, in retrospect, I don't think it makes sense because I was gonna be like, basically, I was going to tie into the fact that it's like consensus in some way, but it wasn't at all. I was under the impression that everybody will align with me, but I'm standing kind of standing on
That would
this.
have been awkward. Like, I didn't have them number one.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Thank God everyone agreed with me because look, they are the worst.
Yeah, maybe it worked out.
All right.
No,
Well,
no,
I guess it
I'm
didn't work out then.
open to opinions. That's what makes us great.
Okay, cool. Any quick reactions to any of the recent signings or transactions?
Oh man, KCP 20 million a year. We already discussed this a little bit offline.
I want to talk about that. I think I like that honestly because it's something that'll help them out in the short term, and I think it's a movable contract down the line as well. Like teams will be looking for like his value, and again with that kind of budget, 22 million or whatever, you can pull back some talent if you decide to pivot and go after someone that's better. So I feel like that helps. What's the
When you say the word movable, Gavin, it's just like
I just want to wait. Time out. Like when did 20 plus million annually over more than 2 years become movable? Like that's
exactly what I had in my head. He was about to say.
I anticipate it's 17% of the cap. And I feel like
that's not much.
With another salary, you can get back like a star potentially down the line. That's what I meant. Like it's not movable as in you're trading it for picks. I'm saying movable as in you could bring back like a star or something. Like that's why I feel like for young teams, if you overpay, that's kind of the thinking. Where down the line, if a star asks out, then you could maybe work. It might be easy to work salaries. That's what I was thinking.
Right. Okay. But the idea that they're movable for a guy like Nick Claxton, let's go back to that real quick, is that like you're going to trade him to a contender, so you're not going to necessarily match salaries like trading him, and then they're going to give back a guy that's on a friendly contract that is contributing, like because they need him to be contenders. So it's like you are presumably going to be absorbing him for maybe like not like for like salaries, but like what could like a few picks and what could potentially surmount to that salary. I'm just saying like and KCP is kind of the same way. Like if he's going to be moved, he's going to go to a contender. He's a perimeter defender. He shot the ball really well this year. Like he's valuable, but at 22 a year, like not that's part of the reason why he left Denver's because they can't afford to shell out with 22 million a year with Aaron Gordon and MPJ looming with extensions.
No, I don't think he has to be traded to a contender necessarily. I was thinking like if it's like a middling team that has a star player, for example, who asks out, as a part of that, like maybe you add KCP, some picks, and some salary, and so you're able to absorb the bigger salary of some star, like basically like a salary dump kind of situation. That's the kind of thing.
That makes sense. That's fair. I was thinking of it more from the other perspective, going to a contender, but I acknowledge that. That's very fair.
Mm-hmm. But he would help in the short term as well. That's what I was saying.
Yeah, but I think it's a really great fit there.
Yeah, he's what they hope Gary Harris was going to be.
I don't know if they were hoping Gary Harris to be like KCP. I'm gonna be honest.
I think that was kind of the project was going to be that he ended up being.
It was just a salary dump, and like whatever he gives him is whatever he gives him. And he gave him I thought he was okay. Like he was good. Like good for what he is, but I guess Orlando's the place where former Devin Nuggets guards getting paid around $20 million go to pasture, I guess.
That is an actual wait. That's a pretty insane like you got RJ Hampton and then you got Gary Harris and now you have KCP.
Wait, RJ Hampton's still on their team?
I don't know if he's on the team, but it's just like
no, he's not. He was on the Miami Heat last year.
Yeah, he's on like
RJ Hampton on the Magic.
Guangdong, like he's having a great time with Noah Vonleh and like. Shouldn't make
okay.
That seemed bad. Wow. That's bad.
Is he also being kicked out of his hotel room like Noah Vonleh?
We won't.
That was sad to hear.
That was really The CBA needs to fix that, but like, I don't know. Will be interesting. Najee Marshall for $9 million a year too was kind of interesting. I don't know. Like the Mavs, you just went on this crazy run. I feel like another like creator guard was kind of in line, maybe to even more just like a second unit, take pressure off.
No, Quentin Grimes and Najee Marshall.
Oh my God, yeah, exactly.
I think it's good because like I don't know if you guys just saw like Derek Jones while we were recording the podcast, he just signed with the Clippers. So they're losing out on
Wait,
wing
Derek
depth.
Jones Jr. just signed with the Clippers?
Wow,
Yeah,
this is
30
good.
million. I'm trying.
I didn't see
It
any.
is a
Whoa.
That's a
yeah.
great,
No,
that's great
I
for the
do a little well, during the podcast. I'm guilty of that. But yeah, so that happened, and so like they needed to shore up some wing depth, and so I get it. And Najee Marshall, I'm a fan of his game. I feel like he's someone that can play in the playoffs, like 15 minutes.
I agree.
He's forward.
But what did Derek Jones sign for? Was it worth was it
3 years, 30.
3 years 30?
Oh.
Okay, so about what Najee got 3 years 27. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, maybe the market was a little different at that time. I'm not totally sure.
yeah.
But I feel like for both those guys, like that's under starter value. Like $9 million for a guy that should be like a core depth piece. I think that's pretty solid.
Yeah. Oh, for Derek Jones, 10 million. I mean, he was guarding other teams' best players. Like he was matching up against Ant and those guys. I mean, was he doing a
He
phenomenal?
was matched up with them.
No,
He was matched up with them.
don't disrespect him like that. They got to the finals with him guarding the other team's best player. I mean, what do you want to say to that? Like,
He was good defensively. He was really good defensively. I agree.
He was solid.
who needs Paul George when you have Derek Jones for 10 million a year?
Okay.
Okay, wait, hold on. Okay, I don't know about that one.
I'm just kidding. I'm joking. I'm obviously joking. Like that's ridiculous.
Okay,
But I'm
good.
saying that's a good value pickup. That's a very good value pickup.
I was gonna say, is that the new Ant quote? Like they got KD, we got Jaden McDaniels, they got Paul George, we got Derek Jones at 10 million.
That
You got Derek
could do
Jones
numbers.
Jr. at $10
I'm
billion.
gonna clip that for Twitter. That could do numbers.
yeah.
That's
Yeah, man, actually, that's a good point. Maybe I don't know. Yeah, I'm not totally sure.
Trying to think of the other deals that were already done. Mason Plumlee to the Suns. Really like that, actually. I think that's a cool kind of creator from the center position, like DHO guy. Mason Plumlee's underrated in that aspect. Very underrated. Who needs Mason?
Jumper.
Who needs DeMontis Sabonis when you have Mason Plumlee? Like, let's start the conversation.
That's right. I will say though, like you're getting Mason Plumlee at a risk because I feel like you do. Ideally, you have another big that's more defensive minded, just in case Plumlee's just disastrous defensively. But like having 48 minutes of like big that can run handoffs with all the off ball talent have, I think it makes sense. So,
Yeah.
Although but Plumlee's a little better than Eubanks, maybe.
100%, way better.
Oh, not even close. You gotta watch some. I'm serious. You've seen there's the stupid TikTok edits, but watch some Mason Plumlee assists. Like he has actually.
What's still Matt?
No, I
Sorry.
swear. Watch some underrated feel for the game. Like kind of you've seen Matt, Zach Collins, Hartenstein, these white boy centers actually can dish the ball. Like it's pretty impressive. I'm saying go and watch. You tell me I'm lying. I can
That's
see
great.
That's part of the pod.
That's great stuff. What was I gonna add? I completely forgot what I was gonna say. All right, I think this is probably where we end it. We're rambling now. Hopefully, if anyone's made it this far, they heard that comment. That was pretty funny. But yeah, thank you everyone for listening to this episode of the Beyond the Arc podcast. Make sure to follow us and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at Beyond the Arc 8. Follow Yash at Mathkaball1 and Gavin at Gavin O'Leary 9. Thanks for putting that up because I was debating between it was 8 or 9.
You always forget.
Yeah, thank you everyone for listening. Don't